Israeli youngsters prepare for the day when they join the army. By law, most have no choice. At 18, they're conscripted for 3 years. Some are getting ultra fit because they've set their sights on joining elite combat units.
It's not very easy to get into these units, so I'm trying to do my best to be ready physically and mentally.
The general Israeli feeling that without the army we could not exist, that without the army we would be wiped out, and therefore the army plays a very central role in Israeli consciousness.
Yet some Israelis are challenging the draft.
No, I don't want to go, and I don't think anyone should go, and I call upon everyone not to go.
Israel's glorious military past draws successive generations of young men and women. In the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel seized the West Bank and Gaza. Since then, establishing hundreds of settlements in the Palestinian territories. Israel says they're needed for security. The UN deems settlements to be illegal. But year after year, honouring Israel's fallen heroes becomes a vital part of reinforcing the army's legendary status.
About 700 Israelis were killed during the Six-Day War. That's about the same number who've died in the past 32 months of the Palestinian uprising, or Intifada. Back then, the Israeli military was a powerful, unified fighting machine. It immobilized 3 hostile neighbors, Egypt, Syria and Jordan. Today, some would say the Israeli military is a very different machine, and it's fighting a new enemy, the enemy from within.
These days, the army's focus is trying to prevent suicide bombers from entering Israel and targeting militants. In the process, many innocent Palestinians are brutally suppressed. Some Israelis believe this has turned their soldiers from defenders to occupiers of Palestinian land.
This is an age-old fact. When you have societies doing this kind of brutal things, it takes years to heal. It takes years to come back to any kind of normal life. The soldiers, the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds that go and do these things in the West Bank will never be the same.
Apart from religious Jews who are exempted from military service, relatively few dare to buck the system. But Yonatan Ben Artzi, or Yoni as he's known, doesn't worship the uniform. He's a conscientious objector who's being court-martialed for refusing conscription.
They can maybe take my freedom or force me to wear a uniform or whatever, but what's within me, my thoughts, myself, they cannot take.
Most young Israelis, though, are keen to do what they see as their duty. 17-year-old Tal on the left won't be inducted until July 2004. Amit on the right is 18 and signs up in November.
When you're young, and that's why they draft you when you're young, I guess people are sort of more into that. As you get older, people start getting more weary of these things. But you know, they catch you when you're still ready for it. 7, 2.
Did you ever think for a moment that you wouldn't be drafted? I mean, would you ever think of opposing that?
No, absolutely not. I'm very excited about my army service, and I'm absolutely for that. We have a very dangerous place here, so we have to defend it, and you see in the news all the things that are going on, and you want to do something for the country, you know.
For those that do resist the draft, and for the hundreds of soldiers opposing Israel's presence in the West Bank and Gaza, Athlete Jail in the country's north is where they serve their sentence, normally 28 days. It's also where Yoni Ben-Atzi spent his first weeks after refusing his call-up notice last August. Though he's now held on a military base, he spent more than 200 days in detention, longer than any other Israeli who's refused the draft. Yoni's parents, Matanya and Ofra, are firmly on the left of the Israeli political spectrum. But Matanya's sister, Sarah, is the wife of renowned right-wing politician Benjamin Netanyahu.
It is clear that under the circumstances, the more public and well-publicized the case is, the less Netanyahu can do, even if he wanted to do something, to liberate Yoni. So he took it, he said, from time to time, mentioned, he hoped Yoni would change his mind. Yoni didn't. He didn't, obviously. So we stand where we are.
2 years ago, Yoni and 60 other high school seniors submitted a letter to the Israeli Prime Minister opposing Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. A year ago, the number of signatories to that letter had quadrupled to more than 300. Yoni could have submitted himself for a psychological assessment that could have declared him mentally unfit to serve, but he declined. Yoni calls himself a pacifist, but Israel refuses to accept this.
No one should be killed, and no one should kill, and no one should bear arms, and so it's not just something I want for myself, it's for everyone.
The State of Israel says it still needs a military because it's a small country situated in a hostile sea. Would you agree with that?
Well, the Israeli authorities say, a lot of nonsense. Before the '67 war, I think Israel was a third of its size in terms of a number of people. And we had all borders with enemies, also Egypt and Jordan. And still we won the '67 war. So there's certainly no need now to have 3 years of obligatory service.
Having failed to have his case heard in a civilian court, Yoni's future is now in the hands of a military tribunal, even though he's never been inducted into the army.
They're trying to crush us, and they don't want this to reoccur, and so they try to intimidate other people through us. And so they pick out maybe the most prominent ones, which would be maybe me and some other people, and they focus on us and to keep us as long as they can in detention, so that others are afraid to do so.
I don't think that an Israeli youngster has the right to refuse to serve in the military, because this is a compulsory service and everybody should be equal in front of the law.
But it's not equal, is it? Because religious people don't have to enter the army. Arab Israelis don't enter the army.
If somebody applies to the authorities and he gets the approval, then that's according to the proper channels. This is according to legislation, and this is according to the right process to do. But no one, I think, should take the law in his hands by refusing unilaterally to serve in the military.
More than 500 Israeli reservists have declared they'll refuse to continue to do duty in the territories. They've realized that Palestinian grievances run deep. In Tekoa, in the West Bank, Ibrahim and Ali al-Hajjaja stand meters away from the home built by their father in the 1950s on land owned by the family for generations. They can't get any closer than this.
What happens if you try to reach the house?
If they see us now, they begin to shoot for us. And so this olives for 2 years or 3 years, we cannot collect their olives for us. Because we can reach for them.
They have tax receipts and ownership deeds.
You see, 1944. And this is the stamps for Palestine. Palestinian stamps.
But they can't physically get to the house because it's close to an outpost attached to a Jewish settlement like the Palestinian village also named Tekoa. And to prove a point, armed settlers asserted their occupation by entering the al-Hajjaja house.
This is the Arab Tekoa over there, and up here on the hilltop is the Jewish Tekoa.
2 years ago, Noam Weiner helped to build the road that now leads to Jewish Tekoa Phase D. Today, he's returning for the first time. Surprisingly, we find a company of tanks ominously positioned at the entrance of the settlement, facing Palestinian villagers.
Okay, these tanks obviously were not here before, and these houses are actually new. They weren't here before either.
Noam Weiner was once a proud officer in the Israeli Defense Forces. He's now a reservist in the army and studying to become a human rights lawyer, but can no longer uphold his government's policy in the Palestinian territories.
They put up a power grid, put up a water tower, and they grow.
He came to that decision 2 years ago after orders to construct the road, or so-called escape route.
Escape route is usually a route you make from a settlement to a road so that if you have terrorists or an attack or something coming in from one side, you can get in and out from another place.
In fact, as he soon found out, it was the start of a new settlement, which ran through Arab Tekoa's land.
It looked very ridiculous to me to have an escape route into the middle of the hills. And having realized that this has to be an opening for a new settlement, I tried to call some Knesset members, I tried to make some phone calls, and see, but it didn't make any difference. And what you can see today is that I was right in my guesses. So this water tower and these mobile homes are a beginning of what will be a new settlement. This is one of the things that convinced me that the Israeli government isn't really sincere about its willingness to get out of the West Bank, because you can't be building new settlements and say that you're going towards a peace settlement. It just doesn't work. It's completely contradictory.
Noam joined an organization called Siruv, Hebrew for Courage to Refuse. He was one of 200 reservists who last year signed an open letter refusing to uphold the occupation of the Palestinian territories. Today, more than 500 have signed. This rally in downtown Tel Aviv includes all types of groups representing the soldiers or civilians who refuse to serve. Supporters of Yoni Ben-Artzi, including his parents Matanya and Ofra, are also here. Many of those taking part have completed their compulsory military service and are called upon once a year as reservists like Noam Weiner.
It's not by mistake that these settlements were made there in order to make it difficult to withdraw.
He's never been to jail for refusing to serve in the territories, but he recalls that as a young soldier, he wielded power over ordinary Palestinians during routine checks, such as manning checkpoints.
It can be as fickle as their lunch is late, so they're upset. So they might decide they want to search the cars to make the time go past. You have a roadblock, so the car comes by, and this is in the middle of the city, so a lot of cars come by. and you take the driver out, and you can search him, have him open the trunk, empty it out, take out the chairs in the car, look under them, and put them back together. Now, if you think of somebody going to work, and there's 7 roadblocks, they can be detained anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes in each roadblock, and there's lots of cars going to work. This can be quite harsh on your daily living.
Veteran peace activist and former soldier Yuri Avneri says it's a dangerous precedent for Israel to convict a young man for conscientious objection. He applauds Yoni Ben-Arzi's courage.
Turning people into symbols is always dangerous. I think he'll become a role model for many young people who will say, well, if he can sit in prison for months and years, so can I. I'm not weaker than he is, and so on. It's a stupid thing to do, apart from being completely immoral.
Though he's facing a tough legal battle, Yoni Ben-Arzi is undaunted. His struggle is already giving courage to other young conscientious objectors. It's a struggle he believes he's already won.
For me, it's a win-win situation. Even if they give me 3 years in prison and I have to do them and be there and not go home, eventually I will be home. And that's not the main part. The main part is that I will not have backed from my position, and I know within myself that I have the correct view, and that no one can take that away from me.
For a young person to stand up against practically the whole world, against the immense pressure of organized public opinion, including all the media in Israel, without exception, I can only admire the steadfastness and the moral courage of these people. I must say, I've been in war, and I've seen many acts of courage. I think moral courage is more important than physical courage.
Saying no to serving in the army may never be a mass movement, but it's a sign that Israelis increasingly question the logic that peace may be gained through force.